Hey guys, this is Mr. Grice for Algebra Unit 7.1 Notes. Today we're starting a new unit all about adding, subtracting, classifying, and all fun sort of stuff with polynomials. So before we get started on the actual notes, if you want to, I know there's not a lot of room on the notes, but this is some good information to have. So what we're going to be talking about first is classifying, adding, and subtracting polynomials, okay? But before we do that, there's a lot of vocab, and if you look at your notes, like the first half of it is just vocabulary. So let's get started on that. The first thing we're going to be talking about is naming polynomials by the degree, okay? And you might think that degree stands for how cold is it outside? Like right now, we've had one of the coldest winters and tons of snow, and all we can think about is how cold it is. When we're talking about polynomials, that's actually talking about the exponent. Okay, so here's some examples. If we're talking about a constant is something that has no variable at all. It's just a number. Linear, you've heard linear a lot, especially when we were graphing. Linear is when there's a variable and the exponent is only 1. And if the exponent is 1, do we write that? No. If it's a quadratic, quadratic means it's going to have an exponent of 2. And the last one, cubic. Cubic is a 3-dimensional shape and it has an exponent of 3. Okay? Now, it doesn't have to be x, it doesn't always have to be the number 3, it can be any number, any variable. The key thing is the exponents. Okay? Now, the second way to classify a polynomial is by the number of terms that it has. Okay? And here's our first one, 2x cubed. This is just an example. This is a monomial. Okay, using our root words, mono means 1. Okay, our next one could look like this. And this would be a binomial. Okay, bi means 2. Each term is separated by addition or subtraction. Okay, our next one could look like this. This would be called a trinomial. Okay, once again, root words, tri means 3. 1, 2, 3. And in between each one of those is addition or subtraction. And once we get past 3, anything more than that is called a polynomial. And poly, root word, means many. Okay? But see how each term is separated by addition or subtraction. Okay? So there's 2 ways we're going to do this. One, we're going to look at the degree, and then the second thing we look at is the number of terms. Okay, let's get started on your notes. Now, I know mine looks a lot different than yours, so hold on real quick. So the first thing we want to look at is a polynomial. And a polynomial is an expression that contains terms that are being added or subtracted. Okay, I'm going to go through these definitions pretty quick, so if you need to go back and look at a certain one, just pause the video and then you can get it that way. Okay? Now, combining like terms isn't on there, but combining like, or on your notes, but combining like terms mean to add or subtract coefficients of same variable and the same exponent. Okay, we've done combining like terms a ton. Okay, so that should not be new information for you. All right, And my notes look a little bit different, but this is the next part that you have, okay? So the naming of the polynomials, okay? A monomial has only one term, a binomial has two, trinomial has three, and a polynomial has more than three, okay? And remember, the key thing that we're looking about that, monomial 1, binomial 2, trinomial 3, okay? And remember that the number of terms, these are separated by addition and subtraction, okay? Let's see, I don't know if we wrote standard form down. So standard form is when the terms are written with an exponent in decreasing order. I'm going to flip back to what we just wrote. But if you look at all of these right here, see how it goes cubed, squared, the exponent, and then the constant. That's in standard form, okay? And then the last thing is the degree, okay? The constant, the linear, quadratic, and cubic, okay? Constant has no variable, just a number. Linear has a variable with an exponent of 1. Quadratic has a variable with an exponent of 2. And cubic has a variable with an exponent of 3. So guys, I'm sorry that my notes look a little bit different than your notes, but all the definitions are the same, okay? So I'm going to move on. If you need to continue copying these, let me zoom out real quick so you can kind of see everything all at once. And you can pause the video, okay? All right, let's get started on this. So simplify each expression by combining like terms which have the same variable and exponent. Then we're going to classify by its degree and number of terms. Be specific as possible. All right. So we'll go through a bunch of examples and then this will start making more sense. All right. So the first thing I want to do is find like terms and put them in standard form. So is there anything else with an exponent of 2? No. Okay, so there's no like term. Next, I'm looking for anything with just a variable, and there's nothing else, so that stays the same. The next terms we're going to combine are my -4 and +2. -4 plus 2 is -2. Okay? And after you do this, if you want to be like, all right, I use that, and then I use that. So now we know that we've used all of the terms. And now let's take a look at it. First, what's the highest exponent? Okay, the highest exponent is the 2. And if it's 2, it's called a quadratic. And then how many terms are there? There are 3, so it's a quadratic trinomial. Does that kind of make sense? There are 3 terms, that's why it's quadratic, and the highest exponent is 2. All right, let's do another example. Let's look at B. Okay, first I'm looking for the highest exponent. There's nothing I can combine it with. After the cubed would be the squared. There's no like terms for that. And then lastly, we have that 4y, and that's a positive 4y. Okay. I couldn't combine any like terms, so after I used it, like, oh, I use that, I use that, I use that. Now to name it, the highest exponent is 3. So that means it's a cubic And then once again, there are 1, 2, 3 terms, so it's a cubic trinomial. All right, let's look at C. First thing we're going to do is combine the highest like terms, and 7x minus 7x. Well, 7, positive 7 plus 7, those cancel out. So now the next thing we look at is the 9 minus 12. And 9 minus 12 is negative 3. Okay, so there's no variable with it. So if it has no variable and it's just a number, okay, that means it's constant. And there's only one term there, so it's a constant monomial. Okay, we got 3 more. D. Okay, first I have my 7y cubed. There's nothing to combine it with. Okay, there are no other squared, so I can't combine that with anything. After my squareds, I look for just the variable. And then last, 1 minus 2. Well, 1 minus 2 is negative 1. So we wrote this in standard form because it starts cube, 2. Okay, see how that goes in order. My highest exponent is the 3, so that means it's a cubic. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, so it's a cubic polynomial. All right, let's look at E. E, my highest exponent is the squareds, the 3n squared and negative 3n squared, and those cancel. All right, my next is looking at the n's. They're both positive. There's both 1, so that gives us positive 2n. Okay, and we don't really need the plus sign. That was just for me to remember. Okay, guys, one thing right here that the mistake that a lot of people are going to make, and this is including some of the other examples that we've done, remember what we were doing before is we were multiplying. And when we multiply, you multiply the coefficients and you combine the exponents, okay? But when we are adding now, remember the coefficient's the number in front, we add the coefficients and the exponent stays the same. We're not changing those now. So that's why that turns into 2n. And then what's left over is the negative 8, right? So my highest exponent would be the n. So that means it's a linear. And then how many terms we have? 2. So a linear binomial. All right, I know F is not on my sheet, but it's on yours. So why don't you guys try F and see how you do. Okay, so I'm looking for the highest exponents. And when I add those together, I get 33y squared. And then negative 12 and 7y, when I combine those together, I get negative 5y. So my highest exponent is 2, which means it's a quadratic. There are 2 terms. Binomial. So it's a quadratic binomial. Okay? And then G, once again, pause it. You're all on your own. Good luck. Okay, so the only thing that you're left with is that 3y squared, or 3w squared, I'm sorry. The 4y's canceled, or the 4w's canceled, and the 8's canceled. So then you're just left with a quadratic because it's got an exponent of 2, and it's a monomial because it's all by itself. Okay? Well, guys, I'm going to pause it, stop this video right here, and the back page will be a video all on its own. So thank you for watching Algebra Unit 7.1 Notes Part 1, or Video 1, and we'll get on to Video 2 in just a second. Thanks for watching.